Okay, so same as usual, Wendy. I got to tell you, we can't do this any other way than the way that we got to do this. We got to have fun because it's a vibe, and that's the way we got to do it.
Dude,
And
you didn't even need to
so
preface that. We're going to have fun regardless.
the way I wanted to start this was to say, you've been in the game for a long time. And one of the things we wanted to do was talk about what you've seen, what you've compared to how things were at certain points and where things are now. But before we do that, this is Chat GPT 4. Who is Wendy Day? Question mark. I'm going to read it. Wendy Day is an influential figure in the music industry, best known for her work in advocating for artists' rights and helping them secure equitable contracts. She founded the Rap Coalition, an organization that helps artists navigate the music business without falling victim to exploitative deals. Day has played a significant role in the careers of several high-profile artists by assisting them in getting out of unfair contracts and educating them about the industry. Her work has been pivotal in changing how contracts are negotiated for artists in rap and in hip hop. And if I may, who are some of the artists you're talking about? Worked with a number of prominent artists in the hip hop industry. Some notable examples include Eminem, whom she helped to secure a major label deal by showcasing his talent as strategic manager to industry stakeholders. Also assisted in the Cash Money Records label, home to artists like Lil Wayne, in negotiating a landmark distribution deal with Universal Music, which is highly favorable for the label and set a new precedent in deal making.
Yes,
Her
it did.
influence and assistance have been crucial for many artists looking to advance their careers while retaining more control over their work. The show is already over. Is that
I know,
accurate?
right? But well, it left out Master P. It left out David Banner, Twista, Trouble, Girl Code. Am I leaving anybody out? Yeah, that's about it.
It gives a good contrast if you say some and then I say, so that way it's not just me talking the whole time.
Right. One of the coolest things I do though is I really help artists that have investors
Sure.
make money with their music, and that really matters to me. I'm
Helping
really
artists that have investors make money
make
with their
money with their
music.
music. Yeah. So
Not every artist has an investor.
most do not. So, and I find that it takes at least $150,000 to break an artist in 2024, and most artists don't have a budget like that. And
Yeah, definitely not.
I do a lot of educational. I have videos. I have a book. I have a subscription service. I've got so many different resources and free resources for artists that don't have larger budgets, so that they can succeed in the music industry.
That's good to know because if I was listening, it's like, that's house money. I don't know if I can continue listening. I don't have that kind of cash if I'm
Right.
an artist listening to this all the time.
Well, it just
But
means they
another
can't
thing,
hire me. It doesn't mean they can't succeed.
well, it sounds like what they have the option to do is start with a bunch of the other materials and
Correct.
resources that you just mentioned as a
Correct.
really great place to start. And
Yes.
then once they get there. But I'll say this because I feel like a lot of people have a mentality of going like, well, $150,000, like it's impossible for me to figure that out, or I'm never going to have that, or there's some
It's
story
not.
that people are going to tell. But I think if somebody's talented enough and diligent enough to get an investor or get that amount of cash or savings or whatever it is some other way, I think if you really believe in yourself, maybe you're going to use that money that you could have bought a house with to build the house of you.
And there's a million ways to succeed in the world. Like, my way is not the only way. I can only speak for what I know and what I'm able to do, and I'm not for everybody.
Okay, so obviously in the Chat GPT story, and then what you were saying, obviously name dropping a lot of those deals and contracts did start a while back, and you've been doing this for a long time. So help enlighten me and therefore artists what things were like before, and at any point in time you think is a reasonable comparison to like what the industry is like now. We'll frame it up with a
Oh,
then
yeah.
and now, and then
Okay.
let's get into
I would
let's
love
get
that.
into some examples.
So let's start with the 1990s because that's always considered the golden era of hip hop. The two biggest differences that I see are in the 90s, we used to be able to force music into the public realm, which means if I had a large enough budget, I could really focus on a song and take it from like here to here. You can't do that today. Today, I test music, and if a song has the ability to grow, then I grow it. It would cost me way too much money to force a song on people, and it's too fractured today for me to reach a large enough audience with my ad budget to really make a song pop that wasn't growing legs on its own. And then the second biggest difference that I see is in content. Back in the 90s, you had to really like an artist, and then you would start to investigate who they are and what they're all about. Today, it's the opposite. You have to sort of like the artist, and then you go check out the music. And I
Mm,
was using this example with one of my friends recently. Like, I started to really like Nas's music back in the 90s, and that took me down, the rabbit hole. I started to really discover who he was. He was from Queensbridge, and today it's really kind of the opposite. You find out who an artist is, you wait to feel a connection with them, and then you go check out the music. It's an attention commodity. We're seeking attention today. We want to catch
yes.
somebody's attention. That's how we judge something.
And that it's extremely valuable to catch attention. And I always talk a lot about how to catch attention in certain conversations. But I think the difference is also, I find also that I will discover something that I think is really, really good. I'll give you an example that's not in music that I think is interesting to hear is I'll see a stand-up comedy on YouTube shorts and I'll see a little bit, a joke, and I go, oh, that's really good. And then I go and I bet there's more where this came from. So then I
Yes.
go and I look for a special or something. And then if I like that special, then I go and I'm like, who is this person really? And where do they come from? And what's their story? And now I want to know a little bit of background. And then what all ends up happening there is a natural, it's like a marketing funnel, but of
Yes.
total authenticity of like, hey, I got caught in one of these many, many, many little short clips. And then I went and found a little slightly longer piece to break it the funnel down even more. Maybe I found like a 8 or 10 minute segment on YouTube. Ooh, that's a really good one from a comedy club. Oh, and now I'm watching an hour long special.
That's how hip hop was in the 90s. But I feel like today, because of short form content and social media, it's like people will see a piece, not of comedians, but of music, and they'll go, "Oh, I really like this." And then they'll go to their Instagram or their TikTok and they'll watch their content and be like, "Oh, they're really into saving the environment, or they're into mindfulness," and they feel a connection. And that connection is what makes them start to dig a little deeper. I find that if there's not a connection, people don't really discover music for the sake of music anymore. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe that's just my take on it, but I just feel like it's gotten away from the talent, and it's become more about the image and what that artist stands for than just their music alone.
Yeah, and I actually
It's
saw
ridiculous.
Macklemore. I really like Macklemore a lot, and I've seen more recently. I think he just shares a lot more about like his family and his personal joy, and he's got his kids in his music videos, and I think one of his kids is like directed one of his last music videos on the
Oh,
new
that's cool.
album,
That's
and
cool.
is telling the story actually about that,
Right.
right? I'm telling the story about my kid directing my music video, and
Right.
so many people are connecting on that. A lot of those fans are probably also at that point in their life, so it's even more of a connection to stay involved in his music and content and stuff. So understanding that I think is really valuable for
Yep.
people. Okay, so storytelling is really valuable because it creates a connection between the
Authenticity is
artist,
valuable. Let's
an
not leave that
authentic
out.
story.
Yes, let's not leave that out.
Be real AF.
Can I give you a real life example? because I think real life
Yes.
examples are helpful. So I worked with an artist here in Atlanta, and his name is Little Donald. And on Valentine's Day of 2018, he put out a song called Do Better. And Do Better was actually a reaction. It's a song that he made for one of his female friends that kept getting beat up by her boyfriend. And
Mm,
it was an ongoing pattern where she would get hit by this man, and then she would call Donald and be like, I don't know what to do. He keeps hitting me. And of course, Donald would advise her to leave because nobody should stay in a violent situation. But for
mm,
her, it was like, well, I just had a child with him and I can't work. I have to take care of my kid. I can't afford to leave and I don't know what to do. So he made a song called Do Better. You've got to believe in yourself and find a way out of this really bad situation, not to victim blame, but it was escalating, it was getting worse. So he made this song called Do Better and he shared it. And in the story, in the song, he told this story and that just catapulted it. So it started to spread around the internet first. It went viral, and then we found him a budget, and then once we had a budget, radio picked it up. It was just like perfect timing, and it started to really spread into the marketplace. And again, we launched on Valentine's Day on Instagram. That's where the start of it was. By May, I was getting calls from major labels that wanted to know who he was and that were talking about giving him a deal for the song. We had a budget in place by the end of May and we took it to radio in June. And it really started to grow legs. He started doing shows like around 3,500 a show. Was they started at 1,500, they grew to about 3,500. By September, he was at 7,500 a show, and the major
wow.
labels after Labor Day started calling us. So we went to New York. We kind of met with everybody that was interested in doing a deal with him, and by that point in time, the deal offers were over $1 million.
So there's a couple key moments in that story to highlight. The first thing is what we've just been talking about this whole time almost is the story, right?
Correct.
That's the first point of connection. And it
And a
sounds
great
like
record.
if I
Let's not
heard
forget a
you,
great song. It's a great song.
I hope I hope that's a given. If you don't have a great song,
It's not
then
always
it's time to go back to
to
make
the lab.
to develop more. If you have the great song, now we have the great story. Well, in this case, it's a sad one, but it's relatable and it's impactful. It's emotional. Sounds like the moment that happened. If you would define it down to a moment, is there was a video that was made that told
Yeah,
the story
it
ahead of
did.
the song.
It
Yep,
did.
and that was on
And he
Instagram.
covered,
That was uploaded.
yes, and he covered all the food groups, if you will. So he had a gay couple, he had an interracial couple, he had a black couple. Like he really told the story through the eyes of four different couples that had issues. And in the fourth couple was the woman was abusing the man. So he really tried to show
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. Don't forget.
relationships deteriorating and including, he was very inclusive in the story that he told, which was cool. Not everybody does that.
That is really cool, and
Yeah,
probably a big reason why that story and that video was very successful. So you have your moment, and then a month later, now there's someone with some money that's involved, some capital that would say, "I want to take this further," and
correct.
then that kind of ties into the beginning of our conversation, which is where in order to really make
Correct.
something happen, you need a budget. And so
Yeah.
if somebody's sitting there wondering, well, how do I get an investor? Make something really great. That's a place to start. That's
That
one
is a
way. It's
that
not
is
the
a great
only way.
start. It's not the
Have a
only
great,
way,
have a big moment. Have a great moment. That's a get there for free type of a thing if you do it right,
right?
and then get an investor to come your way.
I think a large part of the investor was Donald had somebody on his team that understands the industry and that the investor knew that his investment was safe. Because of my track record, he knew I would know what to do with the money, who to hire, how to take it from here to here. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
important. An investor is not just going to give you 150,000 and say, run with it, good luck, let me know how it goes. That's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Can
Yes,
you kind of help me understand how you got to that number and
absolutely.
how you might
So
um,
a large portion
break
of
that?
that, absolutely, a large portion of that number, and every artist is different. So I can't give you like spend $10 here, spend $20 there, because a more commercial artist or a more street rapper is going to spend money in different places. But with Donald, it started to take off at radio, meaning radio started to play the song naturally. So we kind of had to chase that wave, and that dictated where the largest sum of that money went. But with other artists, I would never start at radio. Radio would be the last thing that I would go and do. I would do digital ads, I would do influencer marketing, I would do content. Like the largest budget for almost all of my clients is content, and we're constantly testing content. So we might have 30 different pieces of content that we're running ads on to see what part of the song is the strongest. Is it the hook? Is it the first verse? We're really testing. And then once we realize what's working, we do more of what works and less of what doesn't.
This
And
is
it's
what
really
didn't work. And before I forget, the point I was going to try to make is a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, I'm going to spend a lot of money making like a really nice music video or something like that." It's like, well, I spent all this money creating this
why.
one thing, and
Yeah,
then now I don't have enough money. How much do you have to promote it? Oh, I have $100. It's like, well, how much did you spend on the music video? Oh, $5,000 or whatever. Terrible outcome, really. And so understanding that spending the budget on creating a lot of different types of content is a really smart thing to do,
it
and
is.
retaining a lot of
It
budget to
is
promote the
because
content and test the content.
it comes back. Remember what we talked about at the beginning, where people will embrace you if they feel a connection. So they have to know who you are. So you need a lot of different content. You need performance content. You need content where you're just talking to the camera. You need lifestyle content where they can see, who you are and what you're about. You need content talking about, okay, I'm performing on Tuesday at such and such club, and here, buy my t-shirt. So there's all different types of content that you have to make. It's not just one type.
And so for people that don't have the budget yet, it's still something that you can do yourself. There's a lot of opportunity to create all of those
Yes.
things that you just said without having an investor, tons of money.
This is
Yeah, a phone
this
is
is
this.
your best friend, because you can still shoot content. All kidding aside, I could have a film crew come in here and shoot my educational videos, and I don't. I shoot them on my iPhone, because when I first started and had like the film crew come and film me, like 7 people watched my videos. I was in a hotel room. I don't even remember where I was, but I was in a hotel room and I just had something to say. And I whipped out my iPhone and I put it on the desk in front of me, propped up against a water bottle, and I dropped
Mm-hmm.
content, and I got 3,000 views on that video. I'm like, are you kidding me? After I spent all this money on the film, and I got rid of the film crew and said, I'm just going to use my iPhone. And that's what we use with our artists. We don't spend a lot of money on the filming of it. We just have a lot of content that we're filming, and then we're running
Mm-hmm.
ads on that content, and we might be testing 30 different pieces of content to see what's going to work. That's really where the money comes in.
Yeah, and the testing is key because there's a big
Yes.
feeling that you're going to have, oh, this is the piece of this is what's going to work, and
Yes.
you're going to have that in your mind, and then
Yes.
really what's going to happen is once you test it, like more often than not, you're going to find out you were wrong, and it was actually something else that worked better. But you don't know
Exactly.
until you start
You don't know
trying
till
and,
you
and
find
testing
out.
things out.
And then not everybody is going to be like Little Donald and have a hit record. So we test the music for all of our clients. So we'll test 5 songs for 2 weeks on either Instagram or Facebook with a budget of $100 for each song. And it's little snippet videos of a minute and a half, but it's 5 different songs, but it looks like the same video of the artist either singing along in their car or rapping
Mm-hmm.
along in the studio. And then we test those 5 songs equally and I look at how long people stay on that song, like how many people stay for 50%, 75%, 95%. And then that tells me the drop order, the release order for my songs. I now know which of my songs is the most popular. So I'm going to
Yep.
put the biggest part of my budget and drop soonest the first song that has the best reaction. I think sometimes we forget that artists are a brand and that the music is a product. You know,
Yeah.
I think we forget that because we can't really touch it, you know?
Yeah, it's that simple. Except for getting to the point to where you know what your brand is and what your story and your music is definitely a process that I think people have to go through for
It's true.
a long period of time.
It's true.
There was a so we got Little Donald, and then we had spoken about doing another example, and I can't remember off the top of my head
Trouble.
who the name of. Ah, let's hear about that.
Okay. So Trouble, what he's actually passed away, sadly, but Trouble was a street artist from here in Atlanta, and his charisma was through the roof. And he had started his career. He put out some music. It didn't do very well. He had kind of the wrong people behind him,
Mm,
and it kind of self-destructed, and he went away. And then one of my clients fell out with the artist that he was starting to work with, and he said to me, you know, Wendy, do you have any other artists that you know of that I could invest in? So I gave him the option of four different artists, and he went and took a look at all four, and he said, I think this artist Trouble would be amazing. And I said, okay, I don't know what happened to him, but let me go find him. So I went and found him, and he was just starting to record again. And he was very interested in working with this investor. So I put him together like a matchmaker, and we
mhm,
started moving forward. And the first thing we did was we filmed a lot of music, and back then, this is really before I was testing music. So there was a song that my gut said would work really well. It was produced by Sunny Digital, who's a very well known, successful hit maker, producer here in Atlanta. And we put a budget behind the song and we put it out, and it crickets, like nothing really happened with
mm,
it. And I couldn't understand because I knew that it was a great song. I loved it. My friends loved it. We took it to DJs in the community. They loved it. And that told me like that this was the one, but we were wrong. It was not the one. And
mm,
while we were trying to force that song on the public, another one of his songs called Ready started to bubble. And it started to bubble online, it started to bubble on the streets here in Atlanta. And we couldn't ignore that. We couldn't ignore the fact that here's this song that we didn't think was a hit record really starting to bubble. So we switched songs. We jumped from the one that was not reacting to the one that was starting to react. We put a budget behind it, and it really started to grow, and it really started to do well. And we worked it at the street level, we worked it online, we really started to get it going. And then we followed that up. Trouble had a friendship with Young Thug, and they did a song together called Thief in the Night. And Thug was looking for a song to put out through 300 where he was signed. So he came to Trouble and said, hey, that song that we just did for your album, why don't you give it to me? I'll put it on my album, and we'll have the power of 300 behind us working it.
mm-hmm.
That made perfect sense. So
Yep.
uh, we let him have the song. He put it out through 300. It was on his album. 300 did not work it as a single, but the song really started to react. So we took the song, we put out a clean version of the song. Radio started to put it up, started to pick it up. And then we started to work it at radio independently and take it to the next level. And it kind of did well. And then right at that time, YFN Lucci was putting out a song called Key to the Streets, and he wanted Trouble because Trouble had a nice buzz at that point from these other two songs in
Mm,
Atlanta. And then he put Trouble on Key to the Streets with the Migos, and that took Trouble out of here. That was the thing that really, three great records in a row just took him to the next level. Now I'm making it seem like that was a short period of time. It was not. That was about a 2-year period between us putting out the original song that Sunny Digital produced. It was called Dead Presidents, and us getting on Key to the Streets. So it was really a matter of moving him around, in a 5-hour driving radius, in an area where we could go out and really touch the people. We were
Yep.
working the internet in the Southeast very heavily. We were working radio in the Southeast very heavily. And then Interscope saw what was happening, and they saw the reaction, and they said, you know what, we want to be a part of this. And then Interscope came and offered him a deal that was too good for him to pass up. And as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah. And I think you said something about 2 years being a long time. I almost feel like that's not a long time, especially if you think about like, hey, I'm going to be an artist my whole
Oh,
life.
life.
And if
Yes.
you don't think that the people that are great are not going to be around in the future, if they maintain, oh, they're definitely going to be around. And like,
Yes.
and most importantly, the audience that you develop and have a strong bond with, as those people get older, they're still going to be listening to you in the future. I've already lived that in my. I'm only 35, and I've already have artists that I've been listening to for 15 plus years that
Yes.
I still listen to regularly. And if you take that, it's like, oh my, well, what do your parents listen to? Well, they listen to the same stuff that they were listening to back when they were younger, and like they're still
Yes.
big fans. And it doesn't
Yes.
mean they don't listen to anything different at the same time. But if you think about that, like, oh man, it's going to take me a couple years to have like something work. Like, dude, it doesn't matter if it takes 1 or 2 or 5 or 7 or 12. Like, if you
It's not
still
a
love
race.
making music and you're making music, if you keep doing those things and making the moves, and like eventually something is going to happen. And
Yes.
if you do look at it in the scope of your entire life or
Yes.
career, like you're good.
I think that's one of the areas, Tim, where most artists fail, is because they give up too soon. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
they think
all the
that
time.
they think they should be successful in like 2 months because they love their own music, and they think it should spread faster, and it just doesn't. If you aren't marketing and promoting to reach people, it's going to take even longer. you know that's the joy of
Yeah,
marketing and promotion, is it speeds up that discovery process. And I've also found that artists get discovered on YouTube right now, YouTube, TikTok, a little bit on Instagram, and a little bit on SoundCloud still. So you need to be where fans are discovering music. You can't be hanging out where people don't discover music, you
yeah.
know?
And being consistent with the output and the
Yeah,
experimentation, like
yeah,
experimenting in as many ways as possible is such an important thing to do. People are some people are doing a great job. I should say that. We're not trying to like say all these negative things. Certainly not.
no,
I just
certainly
think
not.
more people, I think just have more confidence in trying things
Yes.
more consistently and not overthinking it. And you had mentioned there was someone you're just started working with, and you haven't done all this stuff yet, but you were like, there, maybe we could talk about what we're going to do.
Yes, yes, Apollo Fresh. Thank you. Yes, I remember. So Apollo Fresh is an artist that I met oddly at Harvard University. I was up there for a week with IDK, teaching 25 up and coming artists, creators, and musicians.
Sorry,
Uh,
just tracking. You were at Harvard
yes,
hanging out
university.
with rappers.
Yes, yes. So there's this there's
Okay,
this there's this not for
as
profit.
you do.
Yeah, as I always, as ever, doesn't everybody? It's a not-for-profit organization that teaches artists. It was an 8-day program, and they brought artists to Harvard's campus that would never normally be at Harvard's campus, basically. So it's called No Label Academy. And what they did, and they've done this twice now, they brought artists through them for 8 days, a rapper named IDK, who's an amazing independent artist, teaches them like different aspects of the music business, like budgeting, how to record, how to market, how to promote. And he brought like an all-star cast of people with him to speak to these people. And here I was at this event, and I met this artist that went through the program last year. His name is Apollo Fresh, and Apollo had a song that went viral in the anime world called JoJo Pose. So as I started really like going down the rabbit hole and seeing what Apollo was doing, I realized that he's got like 250,000 monthly followers on Spotify, which is great. He's got a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram, and he's got a free Discord where he goes in every now and again and talks to almost 1,000 fans for free. So what we're
Wow,
doing for him is we're
that's amazing.
setting up a community. We're using grouped.com, grouped.com, and we're building a community, almost like a fan club for
Hmm.
his fans. And we're going to charge them a monthly rate, just a very nominal fee, and his fans can come and gather there, and they're going to get to see his music, see his videos before anybody else. They're going to get to be in the studio with him live while he records. They're going to get to
Very
hear the
cool.
music. They're going to get to vote on cover art, whatever they like best. They're going to get a discount. But what we're doing is we're building a place where he can come in once a week and talk to his super fans and talk to his people. But where it benefits us is we're going to have all of this data and research and information from the people that are spending the most money with him and supporting him the most. We're going to find
Mm.
out what songs they like. What are your favorite anime? If he starts doing, because he's the world's biggest anime fan. So as he starts doing anime projects, which are the anime artists that you want him to work with? We're going to go right to the fans directly. And what we're trading them in return is direct access, which is what they want anyway. So it's really a win, 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 win for everybody involved. We get to deliver more of what they want directly to them, like direct from the artist to the fan, to the community. Like, what's better than that?
And I think it's important to say you made a really good point. It's that it's these are ways, not the way. And I think
No,
a lot of people get in their mind. They're like, oh, I just
no,
have to do this thing. And
no,
it's definitely always a lot of yes and like, is the world only going to be in the metaverse? No, like
no.
is there going to be real live shows and in the
Yes,
metaverse? Yes,
yes,
it already is that way. You can already go into a video game and watch a concert there, but you can
exactly.
also go in real life and see the same artist perform. And you can
Absolutely.
also join a private group that you can subscribe to for that artist. There's all of these
And
things
see a live
already
stream. There's
exist.
many
Yeah.
ways. And it's really all about the story, and it's really all about the connection with the fan. And that's, at my company, that's I'm sure my staff and my clients are so tired of hearing me say that, but that's really what's driving this.
Mhm. And this is a perfect way. Well, I'll say the two things. If there's anything that you want to say that we haven't talked about or haven't like brought up that you just want to say in general, say anything you want, but also don't forget to just plug, say whatever you want people to know about.
I love you for that. But if you don't mind, I don't want to plug anything because I'm
No
really
plug.
here for you and for your community and your world for them to learn. I didn't do this because I want something out of it, so I'm going to choose not to do that. I love you
No
for
plug.
no, they can go to wendyday.com and find out what I'm working on. I don't need to plug it here. So let's just leave it at that. But there is one thing that I want to say,
All
and I
right then. Let's
started to
go.
say it in the beginning, and you co-signed it, but I just really want to stress it. There are hundreds of thousands of uploads daily to DSPs of artists. So make good music. This really starts with great music, not good music. Make great music, because in order to succeed, it's so oversaturated today that the music just has to really be special and different and unique. And don't think that you can just come in here and promote some bullshit and win. I know you feel like that sometimes, but that's not what it is. I know you think there's a lot of garbage out here that's winning, but it's not. It's not about what goes viral. It's about what's still here 5 years from now and 10 years from now. Who has a viable career, not who's getting attention. And I know you feel like it's an attention economy, and it really kind of is, but this is not about attention. This is about something that's lasting for generations, and something that your children's children's children will be able to hear and say, wow, that still works today, even though it's from 2024.
Yeah, that's incredible. I don't even want to add anything else because I feel like that's a good place to end it.